and we kept it a little secret for that little bit of time.
Stephanie, thank you for coming here this morning and bringing your husband, JP. You know, I've been trying
Well, don't thank me yet.
Oh, I won't thank you, because he's going to be on next.
Yep.
He's going to be next. Listen, I start off usually the conversation by asking, where were you born?
I was born in Miami, Florida, in the U.S.
Did you grow up there?
I grew up there. I was born and raised, same house, until I moved off to college. Yeah.
So you were 17 or 18 when you left?
I was 17. I was 18. I was 17 when I left and went to University of Florida, so still in Florida, and yeah.
So you never traveled out? Had you traveled outside of Florida?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we traveled, but I always lived in the same house that I was born in, which is sort of a funny thing. I think I realized later that most people, that's not the way it works. So, yeah.
So let me ask you, did you still have that house?
No, my parents sold it when I was in college, and I actually went back a few years ago to see it, and it was, you know, they say everything seems smaller and less grand than it is in your imagination and your memory. So,
Yes, do you have siblings?
I have one older sister.
How many years difference?
It's a 5-year difference, though everyone thinks I'm older, which is a little bit irritating, but I take it as a compliment.
Okay, but
that's what I try to say, but I'm not quite sure that's what they mean.
You're like, why is it?
But I've chosen to believe it's for different reasons.
Were you guys close growing up?
We were close growing up, but we got really close once she left for college, which is funny because I think I was less annoying because I was further away, because I was always the annoying little sister. But then we became really close, and we're very close now too. And she lives in Colorado, and we have a house in Colorado, so we get to spend all the summers together because she's middle school vice principal, so she gets summers off, and it's fun. Okay. And we have kids the same age, so they all grew up sort of together. And
so you're a little bit ahead of her for having kids.
Nope, we're there. She had twin girls about 6 weeks before I had my first, and so they. And I was there when I had my first, so we would take them out as newborns, and everybody thought they were triplets. And then she has a daughter, my daughter's age, and then I have one more.
No, you were all living in Florida?
No, we were living here, and she was living in Colorado. But we would spend the summers together, and we would spend the holidays together. So they didn't have the day-to-day, but they would have, 3 months over the summer where the kids, and they're all super close. And
tell me about your mom and dad.
My mom grew up in California. My dad grew up in Florida. They met at college at the University of Florida and got married. And my dad's a lawyer, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And they moved to Miami after he graduated from law school, and had my sister, had me. They divorced when I was just entering college, and it was not a very friendly divorce. But
so they did stay together all the way through?
They stayed together all the way through.
Did you know this was going to happen?
I figured it was a matter of time.
When did you figure this out?
Oh, I think just kind of generally growing up. They were not super happy. It wasn't a horrible childhood. It was actually quite lovely childhood. Yeah. But they weren't well suited for one another. They weren't really happy.
You figured that at what age? I'm just curious.
I figured, so they separated when I was 16, so I was still at home. And it was, I don't know. I don't know if I could pinpoint a moment in time. I just feel like when they told me they were getting divorced, I was like, I guess that tracks. I mean, it wasn't super surprising. I mean,
Did your sister feel the same way?
My sister felt the same way, and just said, I'm glad I was out of the house. I'm sorry that you're still around for another year.
She was in college?
She was in college.
Okay.
And so they split. My dad is remarried. We have I can tell the JP and I story, which factors into this whole thing.
Stealing my thunder.
Okay. What kind of lawyer was your father?
He was a real estate attorney.
Oh, real estate. Okay, so I was wondering if he was criminal or something like that.
No.
So that's not so high tension to be a real estate.
No, I mean, I think, and it's certainly nothing like it is now with the intensity of the hours and all of those things. Right. Yeah, I think Yeah, it's he was just that traditional job where he got up and put on a suit every day and went to work. And
is he alive? Is he doing well?
Yep, he's alive. He's retired. He lives in Florida, in Miami. He's remarried and has been for 25 years now.
So how old is your dad?
My dad is 81.
Oh, good age.
Yeah.
And your mother?
Is 81, and she.
They were the same age.
They were the same age.
I do have some advice, but I won't give it. Go on.
Okay.
about marriage and stuff. I better leave that alone.
Really? I'm happy to have advice. Okay. So they, he still lives in Florida, in Miami, and my mom lived in Miami, lived in California, was in Colorado for a while, in Denver, and was near us, and now just moved to South Carolina, bought a house and is there. And so the whole family is sort of gravitating back sort of towards the south a little bit more. My sister has bought a house in South Carolina as well, and we'll probably eventually end up somewhere.
But your mother never remarried?
My mother never remarried. When I was in, so when my parents got divorced, she dated a bit, and at my high school graduation party, a mutual family friend said to my mom, "There is somebody here that you need to meet. It's the one person at this party that you need to meet." And it happened to be JP's father.
Origin story.
You wait.
This is our origin story, and it's a pretty good one.
Let's do it.
So I had known John Paul growing up. We went to the same middle school, and we went briefly to the same high school, but we had the same mutual friends.
Let me assume that his father's name John Paul.
His father's name is Paul.
Okay. So why do you go by JP?
Because about 1980, there was a Pope, John Paul I, and my hypocrisy has some limits, and so I moved over to JP because I felt like it was an affront to the Pope to have somebody like me rolling around.
And if you knew him back then, you might agree.
So tell me more about it.
So I had known JP for a long time and wasn't a fan of his particularly.
Now, were you guys in the same grade?
He's a year older than I am.
Okay.
So my best girlfriend growing up had an older brother, and that older brother was his best friend. So we were always at the same house. We were always kind of in the same orbit. And he was a lot back then. Let's just leave it at that. If he wants to expand on that, he's more than welcome. So I'm going off to college, and his dad and my mom start seeing each other. And I come home for, Thanksgiving break or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, well, the Toppinos are going to spend Thanksgiving." And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not hanging out with JP at the Thanksgiving table. That's absurd. So I would take off and be like, "Yeah, have fun."
But what about your sister?
Yeah, my sister was
she's
fine.
Much older. She didn't care.
She didn't care.
Didn't care about him,
she didn't care. Whatever. She was like, whatever. It's all good. Right. So I was, thought it was all. I was happy for my mom, but I didn't need to hang out with JP. And then this kept going on because they continued to see each other, and so over time, we were always sort of hanging out together.
How much time was this?
It all gets a little blurry in my mind. I guess it took about a year.
Maybe two.
Couple years.
Yeah.
My mom turned 50, and we threw her a surprise party. And JP is an excellent chef, and always has been. Even then. And so he was in charge of the dinner party part of it, and I did the sort of decorations and the table and all that stuff. So while we were getting ready for that, we spent days together grocery shopping and buying things and doing things, and realized that we have a very similar sense of humor, which maybe doesn't say a lot for me, but we have a very similar sense of humor, and that once you get to know him, the most important thing to him is family and the people that he loves, which isn't immediately apparent, more so now that he's older. But when he was younger, you kind of had to see that a little bit more. And so then I thought, oh, okay, not bad. And he's always been cute, so there was that. And then I guess one thing led to another, and we started dating, which was highly controversial.
No, was it because of JP's aggression? I would assume it was.
It was, I think,
I'm asking. You don't have to go there. If you don't want to.
I think you know what? It was one Thanksgiving we were all together, and I think curiosity got the best of us, and
Did you spin the bottle?
we shared a moment, and then went our separate ways, thinking that would be it, and that was that done. We've satisfied that curiosity a little bit, and then at Christmas time, JP threw a dinner party, and I was invited, and he greets me at the door and gives me a big kiss, and I thought, oh, this isn't over. Okay. This is going to be something.
You weren't communicating during the time while you were gone?
No, though I used to give him my college notes, but no, we weren't communicating during that. It was only between that Thanksgiving and that Christmas, so it wasn't a lot of time.
It wasn't a lot of time. Okay, so just like.
And so then that happened, and I went, oh, okay, I think this is going to go somewhere. So it did, and we kept it a little secret for that little bit of time because we figured that was very controversial with our parents dating, and it was. Nobody was happy. Yeah, they were like, go back to school, don't see each other,
Well, who was pushing it the most? It had to be one side or the other, I'm assuming.
Between us?
No, between your
between
parents.
them? No, I think they were
They
a
came
fairly
together.
united front. Yeah. JP was a little bit of a wild man back then. So my mom was like, I don't think this is a good idea. And I think they just felt like they had a relationship, and if we then got together and it wasn't going to last, everybody was sure it wasn't going to last, then it would mess up the whole dynamic of everything and be controversial. And so they said, just don't go there. Like, don't mess it all up. And of course we didn't listen because we were 19, I
And
think,
that made
at
you
the
want to be
time.
with each other more.
And so we did, and eventually everybody, I think, made their peace with it. And
How long was it? How long do you think how long was it before?
I think it was a little while, maybe a couple of years. It was fine. It was never like outright aggressive. It was just like,
Just trying to just
yeah,
clue you in.
yeah.
You'll come
so
to your senses eventually.
right, exactly.
That type of thing.
And then we have still yet to come to our senses, so we're fine.
How many kids after?
I know, 3 kids, and
3 kids after.
30-something years later, right? We've been married it'll be 25 this summer.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So it's been a long time. And
So
then
how long did you date before you married?
7 years.
Something like that, yeah.
It was about 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah. It all runs together. 7 or 8 years. So we dated through college. He graduated a little bit ahead of me, moved out to California for a job, and then I graduated and followed.
Were you in the same college?
We were for periods of time. His, I'll let him tell it, but he kind of moved around a little bit for family reasons, and and then we both moved out to California, and then lived there for a long time, and then he came home one night and said, "What do you think about moving to Japan?" And we were engaged.
Okay.
We were engaged, not married yet, and I woke up. He had just flown in from a business trip and had come home, and I woke up the next morning and I tapped him. I said, "Did you ask me if I wanted to live in Japan?" And he said, "I did." I said, "Yeah, well, sure, I think I could do that." And then we got married, went on our honeymoon, and moved directly to Japan from there, and have been here ever since.
Had you ever come to Japan before that?
Between when he asked me that question, when he'd asked me, I'd never been to Japan.
Okay.
And then before we got married, we kind of took a trip out here to see what we thought. And of course, his partner was smart enough to like roll out the red carpet and have an amazing stay at the beautiful hotel and all the stuff. And I thought, okay. I mean, I'm like a 27-year-old who's like, I could do this for a little while. So,
And he was in Tokyo.
yeah.
What did he do? What kind of work did he do there?
Did I do? Did he do?
Yes.
Same thing he does now. He was with Secure Capital Real
Okay.
Estate Investment.
All right. And what did you do?
And I was headed to law school. So naively, in hindsight, I said, well, this is for a couple of years, so I'll delay law school for 2 years, and then when I go back, I'll do that. And
You haven't gone back.
Safety, man.
And she hasn't gone back.
then I've never gone
She's
back.
still waiting to go back.
Yeah, exactly. So then we started having kids, and Yeah, I'm not sure my brain could do it anymore.
You have, I know you have, your first is the son.
I have Nicholas, who's 22,
right.
and he's newly graduated working. I have Emme, who just turned 20 yesterday, and she's a sophomore in college. And then I have Matthew, who is 15, and he's here, and he's a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
And they were all
how many years between
raised
the oldest
here.
and the youngest?
7.
7 years.
Yeah.
3 kids.
Yeah.
Are they close with each other?
They are close with each other. They have one of those where they're allowed to be mean to each other, but nobody else is allowed to be mean.
They protect each other.
So it's good. I mean,
That's
it
beautiful.
drives you crazy sometimes when you're around because they can be mean to one another, but they also
Back each
are
other
fiercely
100%.
defensive of each other. Yeah. So.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're good. That
That's
was
good.
that
That's
was like my one thing
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always.
Well, you have
my-
each other's back.
Yeah, my kids growing up, and because the little one was always the tattletale, and I was like, dude,
Not a good thing.
you know what? We're not going to be around as long as they're going to be around. So you need to keep
You're-
them close. Like
right.
don't be tattling like that. Like
Right.
I'll probably figure it out on my own eventually. I don't need your help. Right? Like just so.
That was the youngest.
He was annoying for a
He
while.
was
They
annoying.
were all annoying in
Annoying
their own
too,
ways,
yeah.
but he was like the little,
Isn't that interesting? How we all learn how to parent
Mom.
yeah.
Emmy's having a snack and you told her not to.
Yeah. See,
Those
I didn't
sorts
need
of
to know
things.
that.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm cool. And you really want me to do something about it? Just don't you get a snack.
Yeah, now I'm going to yell at you for tattling.
You shouldn't
Yeah,
tattle.
right,
Let's
exactly.
make this a lesson, a learning experience.
Yeah, that's all of that. So, but they are close. I mean, they're sort of spread out right now, which, is always a bummer. But
So you've been in Japan for 20?
it'll be 25 years
5
this
years.
coming summer. So 2023
How
will
much longer
be
do you see
25
yourself
years.
being here?
It's the question of the moment.
Not publicly traded anymore, so you can answer this.
I don't know. I think we were close to leaving this last summer. Not for good. I think we will always be here, but we were close to sort of flipping the balance of time to the U.S. A little bit. And my youngest is interested in. All my kids. Well, the boys were super sporty, and I think that Japan has not given them as full an experience with that because they like to play American football. You should ask JP about that because he's done a lot with that in his time here. But there isn't a lot for them here for that. So we did think about moving back, and then my son ripped up his knee and was injured. So we thought, well, he's not going back for sports right now. So it bought us another year. So we think about it a lot. I think.
Where would you go?
We are building a house right now in Sarasota, Florida. And we have a house in Colorado. So I think that if we were to move while my son was still in school, we would go to Florida and park ourselves there for a bit. And then after there's no kids at home, I think, we can spend time here, we can spend time there. If I've learned anything after 25 years here, is that it's a little bit futile to make very far in advance specific plans. I think we can have a general idea of what we'd like to do, but I tend not to nail it down too much because
Well, see, you have the luxury of that too, because it's not like as if you're really set to be at any place.
right. Yeah,
You
we
can
are
choose. You have
we
the
are in
choice.
control of
That makes a
our
big
fate,
difference.
which is great.
Right.
And somebody who is not would kill me. I mean, I there are times where I get a little envious of the person who says, "Well, the company, it's 3 years. We're moving
And
here
you're
now."
envious.
Well, because I think, somebody else has made that. Because I think I'm pretty easygoing. Like you can send me somewhere and I'll be fine. But it's the decision-making part that's difficult for me. So when somebody else is like, "Go there," I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'll do that. Like I can do that." So we don't have that, which is perhaps why we've been here for 25 years, because we can't seem to ever decide or make a decision. So, but
When you go back, do you feel? I remember the
Yeah.
first stages when you first go back. I think it's a really big reverse culture shock. It's not the culture shock people think that you're going to get.
right,
It's more like, I used to live like this.
right,
It's different than what people think.
right.
What was it like for you when you went back, and when did it start to change?
I always had this saying that if you've been here longer than 7 years, you start to get a little strange. Like you go back home and you're like, everything there looks strange to you. And everything here seems like the norm. Where in the beginning, you can go back and you still remember, and it doesn't strike you as so. But I mean, I remember there's a couple of things. Certainly the portion sizes of food, and being at the movie theater and go, why don't you get the extra large and you can have free refills? And I'm like, well, 2 questions. Who's going to eat that much popcorn? And number 2, why would you need a refill on this size of popcorn? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
And there's a tray.
And that's all very
and the soda
American.
pop is like a gallon.
And then I remember valet parking my car one time, and the valet made me walk around the car and inspect it and sign off on it. And I said, I mean, do you think I'm going to sue you? And he said, actually, that's exactly why we do it. And I thought, oh my goodness, okay. And so those things strike me as so strange after being here for a while. But now forward to as long as I've been here, and I think that we can go back and forth pretty easily.
Do you think that you...
Now, I haven't lived in the U.S.,
Exactly.
so living there and having to get things done and having to, there's a seamless, you have to be patient in Japan, but the outcomes and outputs are always, pretty acceptable. But you just have to work through the process. And I don't know if the U.S. is quite the same at that. I don't think that they are. I think the whole process is probably frustrating.
Okay.
But I've never lived there, so I don't, I haven't lived there in 25 years, so I never really as a adult, so.
That's right.
We'll
All
see.
your adult life has been.
Yeah, I mean, pretty
That's
much my
right.
entire
That
married
is
life,
right.
and I was 27.
You had
I
all of your
guess.
kids here too.
And I had my kids here, yeah. And they were raised here, so yeah, people come and I think, I don't really know. I mean, I only know like.
But then, okay, what was it like for you being here, blonde hair, blue eyes, or do you call them gray eyes?
Blue, I don't know.
Bluish,
yeah,
gray, okay.
yeah.
All right. Everyone here knows you're not from here.
Right. I think that's easy.
And, okay,
Yeah.
but also having a husband here
Yeah.
and seeing what you've seen with most of the husbands, or not most, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
husbands who are married to women that aren't from here.
Right.
How has that affected you?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm really pretty easygoing, and I'm not. I think in the early years, I remember when I was pregnant with my first, people used to stop me and say, "Will your baby have blonde hair?" And I thought, I don't know. I mean, maybe, yeah, it's entirely possible. And that was such a strange concept to people. But now I think it's a much more metropolitan, it's a much sort of more international landscape than it was a long
They have
time
access to more
ago.
information now.
Yeah.
That's something I always tell everyone.
sure.
This changed the whole landscape. They can get information that quick.
Right. And it's also made it easier because you can also keep connected to people easier. So I think everything, you can say a lot about how technology in the end has made things more difficult, and I think that's true in a lot of ways. But being here, it's really nice. Like, you can video call and chat with my sister, and I don't wonder when I see her after 6 months, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, or my mom or my dad, so I think it's a little bit of a trade-off. And then we've been through so many cycles in Japan of the types of people that move here and who's here, and I think at this phase of our time here, our friends tend to be more rooted in Japan, maybe, mixed nationality couples that are going to be here forever. And
That's right too. I was thinking too. Also, your perception. You came here as a young adult, but you already had preconceived ideas. I mean, you were raised in America.
oh yeah,
So you came here, and I'm sure that had to be a culture adjustment.
it was, and I was far more opinionated back then
I would
too.
think
So
so.
now it's like it's hard to really ruffle my feathers too much. I'm good. Like, you do you. It's all fine with me, right? Like, I think there's nothing like 3 Toppino children to get you there. So, but in the beginning, we moved here.
I kind
used
of
to-
remember you when you were
Yeah.
members of the club at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I remember because you were very involved, and I kind of remember your attitude at the beginning. And I kind of also remember when you became chill.
Yeah.
And that was after the kids, because you had them in my program.
I did. I had all
You had
three
them-
of them went through
and
your
I remember,
program.
I remember the
and
parents from that.
there's
And
nothing
everything.
I don't have an opinion
Right.
about. That hasn't changed, right? I mean, even if I don't know much about it, I'm happy to form a quick opinion for you and discuss it, right? Like, but
See,
now.
no, you're saying discuss it. Before then, do you understand, don't you? After you finish with your opinion, you understand it, right?
Well, I always know I'm right. I just don't care so much anymore about convincing you.
Right, okay. Right, there you go. There you go.
What do you think, Lance, for our kids' self-confidence first?
That I can.
No, no, I can.
I can.
That's what I was doing, and some of the parents I think some of the people like yourselves knew what I was doing. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with their
With
4-year-old.
gymnastics or, yeah.
But I had to
yeah,
have a
that's right.
vehicle.
Yeah.
I wanted them to feel good about who they are.
Yeah.
And if they get that,
Yeah.
my job, but people won't pay you for that. They'll pay you, they feel they have value. This is gymnastics class, that's what they were saying. And the ones that thought that, that's good.
Right. Right.
But now I'm more bold about it now, and they understand we have waiting lists.
Yeah, well, and those
Can't get people in.
concepts have become more of the norm.
That's
you
right.
were just
People
ahead of your
understand
time,
it. Right.
which of
That's
course is
something.
true. But yeah, I mean, we've known each other since
That's right. Since you've been here, basically.
early days.
No, when you were here, and then you had your first child. How long had you been here?
About a year and a half.
A year and a half, right? So right
Yeah,
on.
I mean, I remember moving here, and we didn't have kids, and we were young and newly married, so I didn't have a vehicle to meet friends except for the American Club.
Right.
And I would come and I would sit down in the Rainbow Cafe, and I would have lunch by myself, and I would smile, and I would look nice, and I'd come home to JP, and I'd say, well, a couple people smiled back today, and I said hi to someone, and then finally I marched up to the women's group. Back then it was the women's group office, and said, I need to make some friends, so put me to work. And they said, fresh meat, yes, okay. So I did that for a long time, and then I did some work on the food and beverage committee and the board, and did all of that stuff for a while. But it was a great sort of jumping off point to get involved and meet people, because I didn't have school stuff. I didn't have any of those sorts of things. So I did Japanese class and tech. And so it was great. I mean, it's definitely served and then I had kids, and the club became all the kid activities and all that kind of stuff, and your gymnastics classes and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's evolved over the years that we've been here, and there's like sections of time that.
Do you see it? Okay, now you have to. We're always comparing ourselves consciously or subconsciously to other people in some way or another, and those in our family particularly. How do you see your life compared to? And I'm not trying to start anything with you and your sister,
Yeah.
but
So we're
and be nice, because she's going to see this.
Yeah. No, you know what? We are super close, and we're pretty different. She.
You were the antagonist when you were young.
Yeah, I mean, I was a pain in the ass, really. For sure I was. Like, we'd go to sports games, and I always had to cheer for the other team. Like, I love a good controversy, right? Like, I'm great with that. So I'm a little bit of a pain. But, yeah, I mean, I think she lives in the mountains in Colorado. She's super sporty. She looked at what we were doing here, and she would say, yeah, but JP works those long hours. She's like, I don't want that. Like, I want a family at home at 5 o'clock,
And he's
those
there?
sorts
Is he
of
there? Is he
things.
there?
And well, she has since divorced her first husband, but
There you go.
but
Okay.
I
She
think
she has a second husband now.
well, she has a long-term partner. Yes,
Okay. How
they're
many
not
kids by
married.
the first?
She has 3. So
By
the
the
twin
first?
girls and then another
twin.
daughter. Yeah. And so was really kind of a single mom from about middle school through high school for those kids. But like her priorities and what she had value and wanted were always a little bit different than I was. And she was much more of a pleaser, and I was more of a opinionated, I suppose. And so we get along, and we're very close, but we're sort of different. So I don't know that she looks at my life and thinks, ooh, I want that. And I think the older I get, more I look at my life and go, oh, okay, I like maybe not being in a big city after a while, or being somewhere. Yeah, I mean, I like it, but I could.
You could live in the country too.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of.
In Florida, was your home? I mean,
We were in Miami.
Miami,
We
but-
grew up. Yeah.
in the city. I mean, but not the same
Yeah,
way.
but
It's
Miami's
different.
not a city
It's
like
right, it's
Tokyo
suburban.
is
You're
a
right,
city.
right, it's
And
flat.
Tokyo's not a city like most cities either.
Not
I
any
think
other
we're a little bit
city.
spoiled.
That's true.
Because it's a city without a lot of the big city problems in your face all the
No, it
time.
doesn't. It's all up down, and it's up and down and in and out, and it all works.
Yeah, right? There's an order about it
It
that you
is.
don't get other places, which makes me think, oh, maybe I don't really love big cities. I just love Tokyo
Got you. I
because
hear
it's a little bit different. And so that's why I say, you
you.
know,
And you don't have to fit in.
and I don't have to fit in. You don't. I
And
think
you
I
get
think being
to-
this way, you're almost exempted from a lot of the rules.
You
And
get
it,
special treatment.
and people find it irritating, right? Like, oh, women's rights and all these things, and don't you get tired of people thinking you don't know anything? And I think, not really, because I get a lot of benefits out of it. Like, I don't know.
I know how to work it.
You can work the
I
system.
know how to work it. I know how to
And
work it.
I've been here so long that I really understand the subtext. I really do. I get it. I know what's happening, and so it's you can be on the outside, but you still have the knowledge of the inside. So yeah, those things don't bother me so much. My daughter, who grew up here and is loud and full of personality and very much her own person, and blonde hair and blue eyes, had just about enough of it when she got through high school. She was tired of always not fitting, I think, the mold of what sort of is considered pretty or typical or any of those things, and standing out in perhaps a negatively perceived way. She's like,
So she's happy in the States.
so she really wanted to go. I mean, she just couldn't wait to get out and go to college in the US. And she wanted to be, she's like, I've never been like a quintessential American, right? I've never done that. So I want to go try that for a little while. So she's at a university, and she's at Tulane, and loves it, and does the whole college thing, and doesn't stand out from the blonde
right,
hair, and
exactly, exactly.
she's not like stick skinny, and she's beautiful, but it's not strange there. Here it was always a little bit not the norm, and I think she just got tired of that.
She went to SIJ, didn't she?
She went to SIJ.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cliquish, though.
All of my kids, by the time they hit high school, were sort of like, I'm done. And they're a little bit, they're not the norm, because we're two Western parents.
That's right.
And we've lived here for their whole lives. There aren't very many children like that.
So you guys came later than the real boom was prior to you.
Yeah.
That's when everybody was just like you.
Yeah.
Everyone came here. They were from the country they came from, the husband and the wife.
Yep, but they've
And
all
there were
since
very
left.
few. Yeah, and there were very few Japanese in the school.
Yeah. Oh,
Then-
right.
No, there were very few.
Right.
They were the exception. If they went to a school that spoke only English. Now, you
it's
see
more-
somebody
it's more
blonde hair,
than
blue eyed, they
50%.
stick out.
Yeah.
They stick out. They're not the one. They're not the norm.
Yeah, yeah. And I think COVID, exacerbated
most
that.
definitely did.
And so, which is all fine, but I think we're in this, like, my kids sort of are in this odd little subset where they weren't Japanese, but they'd been here so long, so the turnover of friends and the 3 to 5 year rotation of people wore on them. And but then they go away, and she couldn't have gotten out of here faster. And then she's gone for a little while, and then she misses it and can't wait to come home, and it's home, so.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah, it is.
Especially when it wasn't violent in any way, and it was safe, and
Yeah.
all the stuff.
Oh,
I think the worst thing our country does, which I love with a passion, is they give us so much information that isn't pleasing, that makes you feel threatened. And when you get around that, and you've come from a place where you never feel threatened,
right.
at
It
any
seems
time
so
of the
much
day,
more,
it's,
right?
it's really exaggerated. Yes,
Yeah.
it becomes
And
exaggerated.
it becomes, right, your fear becomes a little bit
Even more
out
than
of,
the person
out of
who's
place.
And then you really don't know what to do. That went through me. Being an African American and coming here and going back, I realized I liked it when I first came here and went back, and people in the States were still afraid of me. But after those little kids shot up the school,
Yep.
they became afraid of everybody. And when people are looking at you and smiling and saying, how you doing? They're doing that out of fear mostly.
Yeah.
Are you a good person?
But I mean, yeah.
It's different.
They're doing a quick calculus in your...
They smile at you, that's good, but I can feel it. And when you smile back, they're okay. And then if you get a little bit friendly like we are here, they get a little,
oh, what's going on? Hold on. We're getting... Yeah. The agenda. Everybody has an agenda of some sort. Yeah.
It's not so.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Go on.
I was going to interview you, but I won't do that.
I was going to ask you this, Stephanie. I was going to ask you this before I end the podcast. There's a question I usually ask all of my interviewees, and that is, if you were to go back in time, what time would you pick, and what advice would you give to the Stephanie at that time?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's funny because I think that my life has turned out quite beautifully. You know, I have a happy marriage and great kids, and we've had an adventurous life that I would have never predicted. And some of it happened in spite of what I considered or didn't consider. But I would say probably in my 30-something-year-old self, who was kind of knee-deep in kids and all of that. And I loved, one of the blessings I think I had living here was that I didn't have to feel like I needed to do all of it. I didn't need to work and raise kids and do all of those things. I could just raise my kids. I didn't feel the career pressure, which I thought was a gift, really, that I was surrounded by women who were here, who were very accomplished, very bright, but by being here and the choice that they made, they weren't working at the time. So I had plenty of intellectual stimulation and interesting people and all of that. So I didn't push that side of myself very much, which I considered a blessing. Now that my kids are almost grown and I'm 50-something, I'm left going, okay, now what do I do? And I'm trying to figure it out now, and I wish that I had maintained a thread, at least from there, so that when I hit this stage of my life where I'm about to be an empty nester, I wasn't really with such a wide open canvas looking at what I was going to do, because like I told you before, I'm not very good at making decisions. So I think I would look back at my late 30-something self and say, pick a little something now and do it. And I have, to an extent. I mean, I do a lot of fundraising for charities and I do a lot of those things, but keep that thread alive so that when the time comes, when your children are no longer it, you have a clear path of what you want to do.
Beautiful.
That is probably what I would say.
That's a sink. My goodness.
No.
Great answer, man.
Is
Thank you
it?
so much. That was
Shared to have to answer this question.
Oh my goodness.
right.
Well,
I'm going to just twist yours up a little bit.
well,
Now
I
this-
wouldn't, because I wouldn't change. I mean, my life, there's, whether I made the decisions deliberately or not, I don't have many complaints about, where I am. So I would be nervous to change too many things. Because who knows where it would go, right?
Yeah.
Like that movie Sliding
That's right.
Doors
There you
or
go.
whatever.
Let me end this podcast by saying I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And never forget, it's all on loan, so continue to reach for the stars because you're too blessed to be stressed.